let's go ahead and dive into tonight's topic. 3 big mistakes people who want to live great lives make. Again, you heard me mention a moment ago that sometimes we think that to live a great life, it's a mental process, right? For some of us, the obstacle is just getting to the point, wrapping our brains around the concept that we have the ability to live a great life. Because tragically, so many of us believe we can't. We believe we can't because of circumstance. We believe we can't because the news says we can't. We believe we can't because some teacher, some parent, whomever it was, told us that we couldn't. When in actuality, we can, but we have to first get our mind there that we can and believe we can. Now, one of the mistakes people make, and this is even the big 3, this is a little bonus, is people will stop there and think, okay, well, once I have the belief I can, that's enough. That's super important because having the belief that you can live a great life is imperative to living a great life, because once we have that belief, we can start to do and act in a way that will propel us forward to that great life. But to really get there, one of the things that we don't want to do, and this is one of the biggest mistakes people do, is once they have that belief, they expect things to magically happen. Now, I don't know if any of you on here have ever seen the movie The Secret. A show of hands, okay, I see Periscope, some hearts going up, so you've seen it. Facebook Live, if you've seen The Secret, type in I've seen it. I remember when that movie came out, and I remember thinking, well, I was actually told first what a profound movie it was, how I need to watch it, how it spelled out how the universe, how life works, etc., etc. And I watched The Secret, and I thought, okay, I can do this. I can imagine things into existence. I can believe things will happen. I can attract that which I want. So I got really good with my beliefs, I got really good with my mindset, and then I had this period of time where I was waiting for things to magically happen. And I started to get really frustrated because I remember in The Secret they were talking about, at one point they're talking about just checks appearing in the mail. And so I started sitting there thinking, okay, well, I believe checks can come, I believe checks can come. They never came. It never came. See, sometimes and this is why this is a big mistake we make, sometimes when we get our mindset right, we think that things will just naturally happen, they'll magically happen, and that's not the case. We have to still put work in to make these things happen, and one of the biggest mistakes you will ever make if you're somebody who wants to live a great life, and I'm assuming each and every one of you do, because I don't think you'd be here listening to this or watching this right now if you didn't, is just holding on and expecting things to magically happen. That's like saying, okay, I want to win the lotto, but I'm not even going to buy a lotto ticket. It's just riches are going to find me. And it's not necessarily going to happen that way. I'm not saying that it can't. I'm sure, lightning does strike, and there are those ones in millions, tens of millions. Somebody just won the Powerball, I read, here in the United States. One person won. So people do win. And stranger things have happened. I've heard stories about people who have been walking down the street, and they find a lotto ticket they didn't buy, and it ends up being a winner. So I'm not saying that can't happen. What I am saying is do not expect that things will just magically happen. Do not expect that since you've decided that you're going to live a great life, that's just going to magically find you. Do not expect that just because you've made a decision to live a great life, that all of a sudden greatness will surround you. Okay, making the decision to do it, getting your mindset right is a step, and it's a crucial one. But then if you do nothing and just expect things to happen, you will find yourself in the greatest catastrophe of wondering, WTF, what the F just happened? Because you'll have subscribed to the belief that things will just happen, but with no motion, no action, in which we'll talk about in a minute, behind it, nothing does happen. You don't win the lotto unless you play, as they say. And in the game of life, you're not going to win, you're not going to have the great life you want to have if you don't do things to make that life happen. So do not sit idly by like so many people do, just expecting this will find you, just expecting great things will find you. Can they? Absolutely. And you will find much more success in acquiring those great things and attracting those great things and bringing great things in your life, whether it's wealth, relationships, health, family, friends, etc., by being proactive about it. So do not fall trap to one of the biggest mistakes people who want to live great lives make, and that is expecting things to magically happen. The real magic happens when you decide to make the magic happen. The second mistake I see people who want to live great lives make, and I I've really observed this now in working with over 4,000 people from all over the world. You start to see patterns of behavior emerge with folks. And one of the patterns I see people do is they recognize that things need to change. They recognize they need to do things fundamentally differently. They recognize they need something, a shift, a new set of scenery to do things differently, whether it's in their business, their relationships, whatever it is. But then they do nothing to change. One of the biggest mistakes people who want to live great lives make is they do nothing to change that which they know they need to change. They instead almost sit idly by. Here's an example for you. Imagine, if you will, that you're out in the middle of the ocean and you're treading water. And perhaps you're out there with a friend too, so that way you're not alone. You have somebody to negotiate about your options with, and you're out in the middle of the ocean treading water. To your left you see land, to your right you see land, in front of you see land, and behind you see land. Now each piece of land is a swim away. I mean, it's going to take some effort to get there. And you do not know exactly which piece of land is your ideal piece of land. Perhaps one of the pieces of land is populated with coconuts. Perhaps another one has an abundance of fresh water. Perhaps one thing of land has an indigenous tribe that is not the most welcoming. And perhaps the other piece of land has Gilligan the skipper and all the rest who have established a nice little community with plenty of food, water, and shelter. Or whatever you want on your land, it's there. What you can be certain of, now here's the thing, you're out there and you're in the middle of the ocean, you have this land all over, you don't know what is on which piece of land. But you know you need to get to land because you're treading water, you're starting to get tired, it's exhausting negotiating the waves splashing against you. You and your friend or whoever you're out in the water with are arguing, you can't agree on which way to go. One thing is for certain is if you do nothing to change, if you do nothing to swim towards one of the shores, you will eventually get tired, you'll eventually run out of energy, and you will eventually be swallowed up, as they say in nautical terms, by the drink. AKA, a big wave will wash over you and you'll be too tired to tread water anymore and you will sink and then eventually drown. So often in our lives, we make the decision that we want to live a great life, but we do nothing to change the things that hold us back. We do nothing to change the things that keep us from living that great life. We know that there's obstacles. We know that maybe stress is holding us back. We know that we have a limiting belief that if only we were to break through it, things would change. We know that we have a great, wonderful business idea inside of us, but we do nothing to bring that out into reality. We know that we have the potential for an amazing, fulfilling, full of love relationship, but instead we engage in the same patterns of conflict over and over again. We know that we have the capability to be phenomenal parents, but we refuse to learn what it takes to become a great parent, and instead just go off our reaction. When you recognize that there's something that needs to change inside of you, a behavior you need to change, a thought process you need to change, a belief system you need to change, and you do nothing to change, you are just as good as standing out there in the middle of the ocean, treading water, seeing land all around you, but making no decision to swim towards any of it. I recognize that you may get to one piece of land if you do decide to swim, and it may not be ideal. And I recognize that you may be in a position where you may not know exactly which way you need to go yet. But one thing is for certain is if you go a direction and you get there, you get to one piece of land and it's not everything you wanted, you've eliminated one of the choices. You have time to rest, recover, and reassess the situation, and then redirect your focus and maybe do some reconnaissance too on what's on the other pieces of land. You see, we can't do that if we're always just sitting there treading water. We can't do that if we sit idly by knowing there's things that need to change and we do nothing to change them. We are now almost at the end of February, and how many of us, honestly, how many of us have already given up on our New Year's resolutions? Please be honest here. We're already almost at the end of February. And how many of us here have made New Year's resolutions or New Year's goals, and you knew you needed to do certain things to achieve those goals, and you haven't done any of those things yet. Or maybe you did one of them and it got kind of hard, so you said, this isn't worth it. Or maybe you told yourself some sort of fabrication to the effect of, this wasn't meant for me. I was silly for even trying this. It was ridiculous for me to imagine this was possible. Right? Does this connect with anyone? So the point is this, and again, the number 2 big mistake that people who want to live great lives make is they recognize there's something to change, They recognize there's something that needs to be changed, but they do nothing to change it. They do nothing to change that which needs to be changed. And instead of swimming towards one of their options ashore, they sit, stand, float idly by, treading water, unbeknownst to them that they're exhausting all their resources, their time, their energy, their money, their emotion, until it gets to the point where they sink, and then they eventually drown. They're swallowed up by the drink. Okay, so you have to make the decision to swim one way or the other. Do not fall to victims to the second mistake of sitting and standing and waiting on it by recognizing there's things to change but doing nothing to change. The third big mistake that people make who want to live great lives make is they try to go it alone. They try to do everything alone. Here's the thing. I think one of the greatest gifts, and it's sometimes one of the greatest hindrances that we all have, and I say we all have, and I can say that confidently because each and every one of you are accessing this training online, which tells me that we all have internet access here. They say that the average person in 1 hour, has access to more information than the wealthiest upper class people did back in the 1700s in their entire lifetime. Meaning somebody could live to be 30, 40, 50, 70 years old in the 1700s, and they would not have access, and they could be the highest class of all resources afforded to them. They cannot have access to the amount of information that we get in 1 hour. What a gift it is to be able to have that information, right? I'm grateful for every day because it allows me to connect with you. It allows me to speak with you from wherever you are in the world. I know we have some people here I've seen at least 2-3 different countries pop up. At the same time, I say it can be a hindrance because there's such an availability of information, we can literally go on information overload. And if we're the type of person that thinks that we should, and we have to do it all ourselves, we'll do that and we can tire ourselves out, so we can exhaust ourselves through this process. Human beings, and the reason our species has survived, we're not the smartest species. I think they've scientifically proven now that dolphins are actually much more clever species than us. We're not the strongest species in the sense that there's many animals out there that are stronger than us. We're not the biggest. We know that there's countless animals out there that are bigger than us. We're definitely not the best communicators because, look at how hard it is for some of us to get along with people that we say we love. But what allows us to survive, what allows us to evolve, what allows us to advance in a way that we have that seems to put us as a superior species high on the pecking order is because we communally work together. Right? Each and everything we have is an idea that's built off another idea, that's built off another idea, that's built off another idea. Right? The fact that we are able to communicate like this was not just decided by one person. It was a collective group of people that came together. We share ideas, we work together. The reason that the four walls that surround you right now was likely not built by one person. It was likely a facilitated effort of multiple people. Whether somebody shaped the wood and somebody hammered the nails in and somebody else painted and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The point is this, is that one of the biggest mistakes that people who want to live great lives make is they think that they have to do it all by themselves. They decide that they're going to be the CEO, the chef, the cook, the cleaner, and everything else in between. They wear each and every hat and they refuse to take any of them off. This is one fast way to burn out. It's another immediate fast track to overwhelm. And it is one of the ways that you can zap the passion right out of your life and create a complete imbalance in your life, because when you're doing all these things you think you have to do, it's going to leave you no free time to do the things that you really want to do. And I'm willing to bet that each and every one of you have things that you want to do in your life which would equate to a great life, but how can you possibly do those things when you're doing everything else all the time? Why in the world would we want to go alone? It's kind of like saying, okay, let's say you want to take a cruise. We're back in the ocean. This time we're not treading water, but now we're on a boat. And you are out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, 1,000 miles from land on either side. And you wanted to get to Hawaii. Now, what would you rather do? Would you rather sit there and spend time reading and learning how to sail, learning how to navigate, learning all the nautical things you need to know? Would you rather just blindly set sail and kind of go around hoping that you have enough food, water, and rations to get you to Hawaii, not knowing if you're going to make it because you have currents, you have wind changes, all those things, and plus, remember, the ocean's still moving even when you're sleeping? Or would you rather have a captain on board who knows exactly what to do and exactly how to get to Hawaii so that you can get there in as fast and efficient and safe time as possible? Right? Which would you rather have? Would you rather have the captain, or would you rather be that person out there in the middle of the ocean, not knowing what the heck you're doing, and say, okay, you know what, I would rather, the heck with the captain, I'd rather figure this all out myself. Now, not even accounting for how much time, energy, and effort that takes for you to do that. Right? I'm assuming if you're on your way to Hawaii, you're going there for a reason. Perhaps it's a wedding, perhaps it's a vacation. Whatever it is, how much of that wedding, how much of that vacation time is lost now because you're out there still in the middle of the ocean trying to figure out what the hell you need to do to get to Hawaii? As opposed to having a captain on board who has already mastered the exact thing that you want to do, getting from point A to point B. And then if you'd like to really learn those things, you have the captain there who can mentor you through the process of it. The captain can say, okay, this is where we are and this is where we want to be. Let's get from here to here as fast and as efficiently as possible. Oh, you want to learn how? Instead of wasting your time reading all that, instead of wasting your time doing this and this, instead of all the trial and error, let me just show you exactly what you want me to do to get you from here to here. Which would you rather have? Would you rather do it yourself, or would you rather have the captain? I, for one, would rather have the captain. I was reading this story earlier about a guy who was talking about hiring somebody to mow his lawn, and what a powerful decision that was for him, because he said that the time it would take for him to mow the lawn, he was able to free that time up and use that time to create, to build, to expand his business, to spend time with his kids. And so the small investment he was making in getting his lawn mowed, it produced amazing dividends for him, and not only the financial realm, but most importantly, his emotional world too. It gave him back precious time that he wouldn't have had with his children. Each and every one of us has something great, something wonderful we want to accomplish in our lives. And one of the biggest mistakes you'll ever make is trying to get there all by yourself. Trying to get there all by yourself. There are mentors, there are coaches, there are captains, there are experts out there who have already charted maps and paths for you, but it's just up for you to reach out to follow. It's up for you to reach out and get help and not be the one just sitting out there going as the wind blows, flowing where the current takes you. That's an option, but you have to ask yourself, is that going to produce the long-term results you really want in your life? And how much of your life are you going to devote to just blowing in the wind, hoping that the wind blows you in the place that you want to end up? Right? It's the same idea as how much time do we want to spend treading water until we make a decision we got to go there? Okay? We know we need to change our behavior, but we do nothing to change it. We know where we want to go, but we try to go it alone. Right? How many of you on here, honestly, how many of you on here have tried to go solo because you heap it up on your back and you say, oh, it's me against the world? And then what kind of results does that produce? Really, what kind of results does it produce? I'm willing to bet not quite as good results as they could produce. Right? Again, the point is that I titled this 3 Big Mistakes That People Who Want to Live Great Lives Make, is because even those of us who are well-intentioned, even those of us who have big dreams, who have big aspirations, we can fall into the trap of doing or not doing things. We can fall in the trap of thinking things are just going to magically happen. We can fall into the trap of recognizing there's things that need to be changed, but doing nothing to change it. We can fall into the trap of just going alone, being solo. The species has advanced the way it has because we're a community. We've come together. Anything and everything that you have in your life and you've accomplished has likely been some sort of teamwork. Even those of you out there who have gone it solo, you at some point have learned or had something taught to you from somebody else that's built on your ability to get to a place where you could go solo. We're at our best when we come together. We're at our best when we collaborate. We're at our best when we utilize the community around us. We're at our best when we learn from others, from experts. We tap into that which they already have so that we can get from wherever we are to wherever we want to be. These 3 mistakes, and if you're making them, you already know this, so you don't need me to reiterate this, but these 3 mistakes will be dream destroyers, they will be life ruiners, because they will cost us so much of our potential, so much of what could have been, because we're going to be wasting so much time on trying to figure out what we can do right now. It doesn't need to be that way. So to sum up again, and then we'll open up for questions, the 3 of the big mistakes people who want to live great lives make. Number one, they expect things to magically change. They want to win the lotto, but they're not willing to buy the lotto ticket. Number two, they do nothing to change that which they need to change. They're out in the middle of the ocean. They got land all around them, but instead of swimming towards the shore and figuring things out where they're there, they sit there and tread water, tread water, tread water, tread water, hoping that things are going to change, and eventually they sink and drown. And lastly, they try to go it alone. Communal people, we're a communal species. We've advanced, we've succeeded because of our work together. If you're trying to do it alone, you're trying to eliminate, you're trying to make the breakthroughs in your life you want to make, you're trying to have the success you want to have, and you're trying to do it all by yourself, you are on, my friend, the fast track to failure. Because why? I mean, it's that simple. Why? Why make it so much harder on yourself? Why complicate things? Why put yourself through unnecessary pain, suffering, challenges when there's people out there that can help you get from wherever you are to wherever you want to be? All right. I hope that's been of value to you. What questions do you have? Questions about this?